Hey everyone, interesting news last night. MAUL's kit was officially revealed by Reality Skew Gamers. They were lucky enough to get a developer insight interview ahead of the official forum post. So we're going to put a link to that in our video description. But we're going to go through the MAUL kit and what that means for us. So first things first, what that means is that Conquest is likely coming back either this Friday or possibly Monday next week. It could be later, but that would be what I guess is going to be the timeline on that. So you're going to want to be ready to go for this character because he looks pretty good, to be honest. So where we start, he is a dark side attacker leader. All of those were pretty much known. A Mandalorian and an unaligned Force user. I thought he might get the Scoundrel tag here, but oh well, no, not a big deal that he didn't, I don't think. So CG believes that he is going to be a deadly Force user. He's going to empower the Mandalorian faction, and he has a new debuff, though the debuff only applies to himself. But still, it's pretty interesting. And we have some suggested teams suggested characters include Django, the Armorer, Bo-Katan. So basically, the Mandalorians. So that's the highlight slide. We're going to look at ability 1 now. This is his basic. It's called Crushing Blow. He deals physical damage to the target enemy. If this is the first attack MAUL used this turn, MAUL gains 1 stack of anguish, stacking to 5. And if it critically hits, MAUL gains another stack of anguish. So this sort of, it's not just about him using his basic on his turn. This applies to counter attacks. This applies to mass attacks or cooled assists, etc. So there might be ways of stacking his anguish before he actually takes attack. But what does anguish do? Well, that means that the character with anguish takes damage at the start of their turn equal to 2% of their max health for each stack of anguish and gains that much offense until the end of their turn. But this character cannot be defeated by this. So the character can't be defeated by this is very similar to the Treya cleansing debuffs from Sith unique. But there's a little ambiguity in the max health here. So, sure, say you have 5 stacks of anguish. At the start of MAUL's turn, he's going to lose 10% of his max health. But is he gaining plus 10% offense? Or is he going to gain offense equal to the amount of max health he's lost? Because that could drastically impact the way you mod MAUL. Because if it's going to be based on the max health, you might want to stack his max health so he's going to gain much more benefit out of the anguish offense gains. Whereas if it's just, I'm going to gain 10% offense, for example, then you might be better creating a ratio where you want higher protection to max health. So just a little thing that we could do with clarifying and considering before we look at how we might mod our Darth Maul. So his first special ability, Fervent Rush. He has a cooldown of 3, so pretty low cooldown. He dispels all buffs on the target enemy. He deals physical damage to all enemies and inflicts offense down for 2 turns. This attack deals 5% more damage for each buff dispelled. Note this can only dispel buffs from the primary target. So you're not going to get an insane, oh, there's 40 buffs on the opponent's team, dispel them all. It's only on the target. MAUL gains 2 stacks of anguish, up to 5 again. And if an enemy was defeated by this attack, MAUL gains the maximum stacks of anguish. Yeah, this is pretty good. Like AoE damage, a dispel, and you know, it should be good. Should be good damage as well. You expect Maul to do good damage on an AoE. That seems reasonable. Next, we have Searing Rage. Sorry, Seething Rage. Seething Rage. It has 0 cooldown, but we'll come to that later. So Maul will deal true damage to the target enemy and inflict buff immunity for 2 turns. Yeah, that's decent. If Maul has 5 stacks of Anguish, increase the target's cooldowns by 2. That is spicy. 2-turn cooldown increase, like there's going to be teams where this is just crippling for certain characters. Trying to think of some. So if you attack into Luke, one of the main problems with attacking Luke is that JML gets that AoE stun early, really slows down your team. Maybe Maul can attack the Jedi Knight Luke, increases cooldowns by 2, and then that stun just becomes a non-factor. Maul loses 1 stack of Anguish and takes a bonus turn. Whew. Whew. Okay. This attack cannot be countered. Each time this ability is used, it deals 60% more damage on subsequent uses and increases by an additional 60% until Maul uses a different ability during his turn. This ability can't be used unless Maul has Anguish. Okay, sure, reasonable. So, obviously we don't have numbers for how much damage Maul does, so we don't know how much damage this ability does. We don't know what his offense numbers are like, everything like that. But if we make some assumptions that his stats are comparable to the stat level of Commander Ahsoka Tano's, you know, they're from the same place, so you would think the stat pools should be comparable at least. This is going to deal some heavy damage. Not only that, but being able to do it multiple times, this is seriously heavy damage. But before we get to the leader ability, I want to talk about the unique. So Maul's attacks are unavoidable. So he always bypasses foresight. Characters with naturally high dodge, like Jedi Training Rey, they can't avoid his attacks. Well, that's great. And he has plus 15% offense. Okay, sure. Right. Free stats are free stats. At the start of the battle, Maul gains Frenzy and Retribution for 2 turns and 3 stacks of Anguish. Okay, so this is pretty powerful. So starting with Frenzy means that apart from versus Jedi Master Kenobi lead, his turn 1 speed is essentially the speed of the highest speed character in your team. So if you're going to use him with Sith Eternal Emperor, you're going to use him with Vader, his turn 1 speed is going to be essentially 500 or higher in all likelihood. And Retribution, this goes into what we saw again from his basic. So if the enemy team is going to start with an AoE, Maul's going to get to counterattack. If that counterattack is a crit, he's going to then be on his max 5 stacks of Anguish straight away. Now, if there is an enemy Kenobi, Maul instead gains the maximum stacks of Anguish. Yep, that's great. So versus a Kenobi team, when Maul takes his first turn, he both has the large cooldown increase from having the 5 stacks of Anguish, and he's going to take 5 additional bonus turns. So 6 turns. It deals 60% more damage on subsequent uses. This is going to ramp up very quickly. So he's going to start doing really, really heavy damage. While Maul has 3 or more stacks, he's immune to stun and ability block. Great, he starts with 3 stacks. This also does give you some play. So versus a team that has a lot of stun synergy, maybe you don't want to use all of your stacks from on Seething Rage, and you just want to go, well, I'll go down to 3 stacks, then I'll use the AoE. Maybe that snipes someone up and that brings me back to 5 stacks, but maybe it doesn't. But either way, that keeps you at the 3 stacks or above, just to keep him immune to stun and ability block. So there's some interesting play there that lets you maximize your effectiveness based on your kit knowledge and your way to intuit the battle. While Maul has 5 stacks, he ignores taunt, okay, and is always critically hit by enemies' attacks. So there's 2 things that are great. There's 2 things to note about this. So actually 3 things. So versus Kenobi, he essentially gains no benefit from Frenzy. Probably not, maybe not a big deal. If his speed is comparable or faster than Commander Ahsoka Tano's, then this is fine. Not having the Frenzy is fine. So while he's got 5 stacks of Anguish, he ignores Taunt, which means that on his first turn, what's going to happen when you're attacking into, say, a Kenobi on defense is that your Vader will go there, Kenobi will go, and then hopefully you have a Maul faster than Cat. You can ignore Taunt, target the Cat with Seething Rage, and cack her cooldowns by 2 so she can't just annihilate someone. But this does come with a negative. He's always critically hit by enemy attacks. This is rough. So if we assume that Maul Vader is going to be the next meta or the Kenobi counter or such like, Maul's going to start with 5 stacks of Anguish. He's never going to Seething Rage. Because if you're playing smart, you'll look at, so there'll be some variables. One, if Vader doesn't give someone in his team a permanent taunt or a reactive taunt, then what's going to happen is Vader does something. You have your Kenobi first turn. You'll target their tank and reset the cooldowns on Cat. Tank no longer tanks. You then cack them all. If that isn't something that you can achieve, maybe there's 2 tanks, or maybe there's a permanent tank in Vader's kit, similar to how Kenobi does with General Kenobi. You're still going to have the option that Kenobi can target Maul, and Maul will have 5 stacks and will always be crit. So you'll be able to target Maul, you'll be able to cool assist onto gas and increase his cooldowns. So while this is a cooldown of 0, it should still go up to 1 from being crit by General Skywalker. So on offense, this looks like it could be very powerful, and I'm actually pretty happy that I would be happy with Vader beats Kenobi, Kenobi beats Vader. But I just think that this could cause you some issues on defense. So I say though that is fine. It's just something to be aware of if you think, oh, why is my Vader team getting beaten by Kenobis? It's so easy on offense. Well, there are plays to the ability. There are lines that you can take where you're going to be able to take advantage of the weaknesses in characters' kits. It's always been the way with Swagger. And he has a leadership ability, Usurper. Mandalorian allies have 5% max health for each Mandalorian ally at the start of the battle. So let's assume 25% plus 25% max health and plus 25% offense. Considering that Bam should be loaded for offense, that Django is now a Relic 7 toon, you're going to have some hard-hitting Mandalorians in the Mandalorian faction. At the start of the battle, if Maul is the leader and not in the ally slot, Mandalorians in the leader slot gain 1 stack of Mandalore until they are defeated, which can't be copied, dispelled, or prevented. So this means that if you use Maul lead versus Bam, both Maul and Bam will get the Mandalore buff. Same like if you target a Django lead bounty hunters, Bo-Katan lead, etc., etc. When a character with Mandalore is defeated, interesting to see how this will apply with resurrections. So, because you do defeat, I'm not sure how that works, but because like you could kill a Django, but he then self-revives. But anyway, the character that defeated them gains Mandalore until they are defeated. They can't do more. There can't be more than 2 Mandalore effects in battle. Mandalorian allies deal 20% more damage when they target an enemy with Mandalore. So you get the 20% damage bonus, your opponents shouldn't. While there are 2 Mandalore buffs on allied characters, all Mandalorian allies deal 50% more damage during their turn. So this looks like we're going to smash around any Bo-Katan, Bam, Django lead teams, which is fine. Mandalore. Mandalorian allies assist, dealing 50% less damage when this character uses an ability during their turn. At the start of every turn, dispel all debuffs on the healthiest Mandalorian ally without Mandalore, and that ally gains taunt and plus 100% defense until the end of the turn. Defeating this character will grant Mandalore to the character that defeated them. If this character is defeated by a status effect, Mandalore will not be granted to anyone. There's this team. So let's talk about some potential teams here. We have Maul with Bam, Armorer, Bo, and Django, or Maul with Armorer, Bo, Canderous, Sabine, if you don't want to take out Bam and Django from their respective teams. So let's take a look at the second one. Maul, Armorer, Bo-Katan, Canderous, and Sabine. So Maul should be very fast. And he's going to start with 4 turns. Because he's going to start with 3 stacks of Anguish. So he's going to take 4 turns at the start. So, Mandalorian allies assist, dealing 50% less damage when this character uses an ability during their turn. So, Maul targets one guy, goes, hit you for true damage. Sabine, Bo, Armorer, all basic. Canderous, basics 2 or 3 times. Well, because it hits multiple times. He then does that 3 subsequent times. This is insane. Like, this has a lot of scope. If we take out the Galactic Legend picture for a second, and as CG want us to, let's apply everything else in a vacuum different to Galactic Legend. This could beat a lot of teams. Like, I'm not sure. Maybe it's possible that this is good enough if you have enough relics on the other characters that this could be a gas team or maybe not Darth Revan. It's possible it could be Darth Revan, but like there's a lot of top tier teams that this could theoretically be. This is really powerful. So yeah, I think there are some things to think about with Maul. Obviously, he looks like he has some fragility on defense that Kenobi can take advantage of. He looks like the Mandalorian faction, if you want to split it that way for GA and Vader's good enough on his own. Looks like there's some very plausible compositions that could work at a very high level. So it might be worth, if you're not going for Vader, but you can get Maul, it might be worth looking at gearing toons like Armorer, Canderous, and Sabine. Well, don't gear them, but perhaps consider having their gear available such that if it turns out that this team is legit, you can just jump on it straight away. So hopefully this has been helpful. As I said, shout out to Reality Skewed Gamers, and we're going to link their developer interview in the video description. Thanks for checking in. Bye.